Good afternoon. Welcome, committee members, board members, staff, and our online attendees to our Toronto Seniors Housing Quality and Tenant Engagement meeting of Monday, July 14th. My name is Linda Jackson, and I have the pleasure of chairing this committee and welcoming you here today. I'd like to acknowledge that coming up on July 18th, 2025 is Nelson Mandela International Day. This day is observed to celebrate the life and legacy of Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa and global advocate for human rights. The day serves as a reminder of Mandela's values and principles, including forgiveness, reconciliation, and courage, and encourages individuals and communities to take action and make a positive difference in the world. We have a full agenda today, bringing forward our TCHC translation interpretation policy, which I'm excited to have presented, our operational dashboard, a local housing corporation report update, and TSHC follow-up support initiative, which is about complex tenancies and the supports that we provide. As well, we'll have a verbal update on our engagement and partnerships and communication. We have deputations on item 8, translation interpretation policy, item 9, operational dashboard, and item 11, which is the follow-up item. I'm looking forward to Tom's report. He always provides us a great CEO report, and I know in that report he's going to make some comments about the heat, which feels like it's an important agenda today as we're sitting in a very warm city, and I'm sure that many of our tenants and many all of us in Toronto are challenged with the heat and with the actual poor air quality. So thank you for that, Tom. I will now proceed to our next agenda item, which is our land and African ancestral acknowledgement. Toronto Seniors Housing acknowledges that we are on the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabeg, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Toronto is home to a vast diversity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis who enrich the city. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wombat Treaty between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabeg Nations, the Two-Row Wampat Treaty between the Haudenosaunee and the Dutch, as well as the Treaty 13 and the Williams Treaty involving the Anishinaabeg and the Crown. Toronto Seniors Housing is committed to reconciliation. We honor the land through our communities and programs that reflect and respect its heritage. Our land acknowledgement marks a small but key step in the process of reconciliation and building a positive relationship with Indigenous people. I'd like to also do our African ancestral acknowledgement. Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation acknowledges that racism and injustice is faced by individuals who are brought to this land involuntarily, particularly those affected by the transatlantic slave trade. We acknowledge the experiences of Black people who arrived in Canada seeking a better life, following the abolition of slavery by the British in 1834, while also recognizing the structural, systemic, and individual racism that they encountered, which continues to persist today. This racism culminated in the tragic destruction of Africville, which was once the largest settlement of the Black community in Canada. Toronto Seniors Housing is committed to recognizing all forms of racism, especially anti-Black racism, and is actively working to combat these injustices. I always ask people to just maybe take a moment to think about what this means for all of us and what we can do in our day-to-day lives towards reconciliation. Thank you. We'll now go on to our next agenda item.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Wendy Dobson had her hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Wendy, go ahead.
I just, while I'm here and while Jim's here, I wanted to say a big thank you to him because he came and presented in June to our staff town hall, and it was just fantastic. And I'm sorry, Tom, if I stole your thunder, if you may have had that on your agenda, but I just thought this was the perfect time to bring that up because we really appreciated his sharing his stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think it is stories like Jim's, and Jim is a great storyteller that actually bring what we're our mission to life. So thank you very much for adding that, Wendy, and thank you, Jim, for that. Great, and welcome, Jim. All
Thank
righty.
you.
We'll go on to our next agenda item, which is new business and approval of the QTech public meeting agenda. And Karen, yeah, please help me out. For some reason, I don't see hands on my screen, so I thank you so much for letting me know if I'm missing anyone. Does any board member have any new business or any amendments for the agenda? I'm looking. Hearing none, may I have a QTech committee member move that the July 14th, 2025 QTech committee public meeting agenda be approved as presented. And Jim, you're on the hot seat today as my fellow committee member, and I think Fareed will be my seconder for most of these. So can
So
I?
moved then.
Thank you. And Fareed, are you okay for seconding? All in favor? Terrific. So with that, be it resolved that the July 14th, 2025 meeting agenda is approved as presented to the QTech committee. We will now proceed to item 4, just asking if anyone has any conflicts of interest. I don't, and hearing no others, just as a reminder, if you find yourself that you do have a conflict later on in the meeting, please feel free to just let us know. We'll move up. So there's no declarations of conflict of interest. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5, the approval of the QTech public minutes. And those are the minutes from May 26th. That just seems like yesterday, and now we're in the middle of July. Does anyone want to have any comments or edits for the minutes of May 26, 2025? Hearing none, may I have a committee member move that these be approved as presented? Thank you, Jim. Seconded by Fareed. All in favor? Terrific. Be it resolved that the May 26, 2025 QTech committee public minutes are approved as presented. And I want to thank the team that always puts these minutes together, because these are really important documents that that people will look back to and are available online. So thank you. We don't have any outstanding action items. Does any have any comments on the action items that were circulated? And once again, thank you for not having any follow up. Everything was followed up, which this team does a good job at doing. All right. Hearing none, we'll get on to the business of today, and I'm going to pass it over to Tom, who has graciously joined us, even though he's on vacation, to give us the report and to be with us today. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Tom.
yes, thanks so much, Linda. And through the chair to the committee, just really pleased to announce the successful launch of our updated tenant welcome guide and the revised lease package. And this new version of the guide, it was originally developed in May of 2022. So it was very timely that we have an updated information for our tenants, really to better equip them for support within Toronto seniors. And it covers everything from tenants' rights and rent payment processes to essential details on submitting repair requests and obtaining assistance. And our primary goal was to make this information, as I said, more accessible and user friendly, to everyone. Tenants will receive a copy of this during their lease signing, but it will also they will also be able to download it directly from our website. And we are particularly proud that it is available in 14 languages. Really, so once again, our testament to that, and we'll be hearing more about the translation interpretation policy later today. And also, staff have just shared with me that our senior services coordinator and our tenant service administrators are using the guide as well. So it's now out there in the universe, and we're pleased to have it available, the updated version available. Also, another, I think, kind of new area is with the city, with housing secretary. It's called City Talks, and it is a virtual training and open discussion series, and it's really to strengthen our ongoing, I think, strengthen more the collaboration between Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation and the city, and really supporting our RGR.
Sorry, Tom, you're breaking up. I'm not sure if it's just me.
Uh-oh, am I breaking up, everybody? No? Maybe it's for you, Fareed.
Seems okay.
Okay.
Should I keep? Okay.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah, somebody, if it continues, just somebody, somebody let me know. And these are bi-monthly sessions, and topics. They're open Q&A, and so once again, just to build that relationship. And the first session, 50 of our frontline staff attended. So I think this will really be an opportunity, even for kind of professional development, technical development for the staff. So just wanting to share that with this committee. And also, kind of in a similar vein, is work with OACH and Toronto Seniors Housing Corporation around the joint arrears case conferencing and tenancy management support. And so this again, just kind of builds and strengthens that relationship with our tenants, and really helps to support the tenancies. And these, the first one actually is going to be launched July 17th, and they will be held on a monthly basis. And it really represents a valuable opportunity for our staff, or previously like to work with the city for professional development. And then also there's it will help to improve that kind of consistent messaging, consistent delivery of practice that is really important around the RGI administration, or around rent arrears and managing tenancies. And then the other area, as Linda mentioned, I just want to talk on, is the support during heat waves. Right, so it looks like this July has been, and then moving into the summer, we are going to have some of these extreme heats. And so our commitment is to have a cooling location in each of the buildings for our tenants. It's typically the common room, but also to post and make tenants aware of other locations around the building for potential cooling opportunities. And there is also a work. I just want to make sure that I get this one right. When in reference to there's a joint assessment meeting as part of the executive extreme heat emergency coordination plan at the city, and so we participate. We have representation at that work as well. So just to make sure that we are consistent with what's occurring at the city in terms of the messaging, but also action for our tenants. So that is kind of where we are, or how we respond to that heat aspect. And just to let the committee know that only 2 of our buildings out of all of the 83 have central air. So this is important that we have that space available, and keep the tenants up to date on its access, and which they have with their fob. So that's my update for today. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Any questions? And welcome, Councillor Crisanti. I see you joined us, and I also see Lawrence as well. Any questions? Go ahead, Councillor.
No. I'm just saying thank you. I did join. I'm here. Thank you.
That's so. We like having you here. There's always some good items for you. And for Reid, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And Tom, this relates to this whole idea of only 2 of our buildings being air conditioned, and we know that the situation is not going to get better with climate change and the increasing impact of climate change and the heat wave that's going through. I mean, what is our strategy, if any, to ensure that we continue to afford our tenants with access? I know that you've talked about some common spaces. I'm not sure if that space has the ability to accommodate all the tenants, or they've got to move to different locations. Is there something that we're thinking about? Is there an approach that we can articulate in the public realm if we're asked about this?
Thanks, Fareed. I was going to ask that same question. Go ahead, Tom.
Yes, yes, through the chair to the I can start on this one, or Brad, if any of the other leaders have anything that they want to chime in, please do so. So Fareed, to be specific, I am not aware of any kind of direct strategy that we're involved with Toronto Community Housing Corporation around any significant changes to the larger kind of HVAC systems in the buildings around air conditioning capacity. And currently the policy across the policy across Toronto Community Housing, which we, which was part of the lift and shifter inherited, relates to air conditioning, is that air conditioning, is the tenant's responsibility, and so they purchase those, And there also was the initiative this year by the mayor, by the city, with the offering of 500 air conditioners across the city. Certainly, the need is much more for that, but there, in terms of kind of additional air conditioning, for ETU specifically, there's nothing that I'm aware of beyond what was the initiative with council and the mayor.
Yeah, no, thanks. Because I was also, I was also thinking, just as a follow-up, Madam Chair, is that not dissimilar to the mayor's initiative, there might be something to say about pursuing some of this with a private sector partner to see how we can best retrofit these units at some cost, but not the full cost to the tenants. Anyway, something for us to think about, because like I said, this is not going away.
No.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
it might be an innovative way of trying to address at least partially some of it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fareed. I wonder too, do you know, Tom, is the area in the building that's air conditioned open through the night?
So I'll let Brad respond to that. I would understand that tenants have their fob access. So as long as the fob is scheduled for night, then that
should be able to go.
Brad, can you respond?
Yeah, through the chair, Tom, you're absolutely right. Tenant fobs will access them to the cooling rooms, and during these heat alerts, we remove the restrictions. A lot of our community spaces, the tenants can't access after 11 p.m., but we remove that restriction during heat alerts to allow them a comfortable place in the evening.
Yeah, that's great. I was thinking about that. It can be very, very hard in the evening, and I assume there's also some way that we're kind of a neighborhood watch for people that can't, the people that are immobile and stuff like that. Just I'm sure that the team is doing everything they can.
So Linda, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So you were right. Whoever mentioned that the city does have a program for 500 air conditioners to be supplied to seniors. It's a pilot program for seniors who qualify, low-income seniors, and essentially aim to provide relief for seniors with any health-related issues. Now, it's a great program, but keep in mind it's only 500 units, and there's a great demand for air conditioners, particularly for seniors across the city, that then especially within our seniors housing corporation as well. So maybe there's an opportunity to reach out to the private sector, maybe to find alternative suppliers that could assist in case of an emergency.
Yeah.
Excuse me, my voice is going, but I think with the extreme heat, no one should imagine living cooped up in a one or two bedroom unit, and if it's 33 degrees outside, it feels like 50 degrees inside.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So I don't know if we could consider some alternative way of assisting these seniors and to ensure that they're looked after as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we're all on the same page. We can look to some of the situations in Europe where the most vulnerable are seniors and seniors living in poverty and seniors. So thank you for doing what you're doing and keeping the board informed of anything that we can do to support the team on this, and maybe going to the city and seeing that if there's anything that we can do, or to go to a secondary source.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to item 8, which is the translation and interpretation policy. And we do have a deputant for this one, and we'll let Mr. Margolis onto into the meeting and have his deputation, and then we'll go on to the item.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. And do you hear me, first of all?
Yeah, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Margolis. And just a reminder that we try to keep the deputations to general information and not sharing names and of other tenants or staff. So go ahead, over to you.
Okay, just following up on the previous note that I had to switch off air conditioner because of noise currently, but our building has a makeup unit that is not working for some reason. Is it possible to repair it? I don't know. Maybe many other buildings have the same thing. So going forward to translation and interpretation policy, first of all, I appreciate the communication staff because our ladies who grow gardens around our building for 20 years, they decided to share their experience. And thankfully that the Senior Speak newspaper was willing to help them to share experiences in sharing. And it is really beautiful gardens. We are planning also to nominate them for the City Award because they are 90 years old people who are growing gardens for 20 years. And this is an extreme physical effort. So going to closer to translation, unfortunately, they didn't have access to volunteer code of conduct. Apparently, there is not possible to download this in English. The translated copies were submitted through the local staff in the building, but it's unclear what copy they have to sign. And as a result, they didn't sign anything and couldn't submit CAF application. I can't imagine more deserving people to submit CAF application. So please, is it possible to post the code of conduct? I assume it should be run on, like the signature should be in English, right? In English version. So regarding improving appearance of the translated newspaper, right now, unfortunately, it's a text-based, but I was told that there is some possibility of some images will be incorporated. What I suggest is to consider incorporating media stuff in the PDFs or translated. I understand that the different languages, different size of text of the same meaning. So it's expensive to edit, but you can incorporate media files like video and audio in the language of targeted language. When your staff visiting the building for photo sessions, it's possible to take such interviews, and it would make really beautiful the translated versions too, without any significant cost attached. So I noticed that TSHC follows TSHC in translating content of the website using Google Translate. This is a free translation, and it's the quality in my assessment is about the same as quality of paid interpreters. Probably they use the same service. So maybe it's sufficient to present documents in PDF format on the website and including policies, and they will be translated automatically through the website. With regards to PDF newspapers, of course, it's more difficult. PDF format is not suitable for good translation using automated tools so far. But again, my suggestion would allow to make it kind of more entertaining for download. And definitely you should provide kind of the ability for people to subscribe to various updates through your website, so through email updates, including newspaper, policies, and other materials. Currently, this subscription feature is missing. So, yeah, with regards to publishing some closed meetings and what on-demand translations by interpreters, given my experience that quality of translations is not much better than the machine translated material, maybe you can offer password-protected access to sections of your website where you publish targeted materials for certain meetings. And that would allow automatically use Google Translate, the same feature already integrated into your website in order to translate confidential meetings or targeting meetings or volunteers or similar groups, automatically translate into chosen language for each person. So just by incorporating the closed meetings into closed section of your website where you should provide a password to log in. This is just my idea how to make it kind of a cheaper and faster access to translations for tenants in different languages. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are some really good suggestions. Thank you for sharing them with us. And I saw Deanna taking notes as we were speaking. I don't know if you want any clarification, Dan. I think you probably will cover this in your presentation. But those are really good suggestions. So thank you, Mr.
You're
Margulies.
welcome.
I'll pass it over to Deanna.
And thank you, Arnold. Appreciate your comments. You're right. I was taking notes, and I'm happy here through the chair to introduce Wendy Dobson from my team, as well as Tashani, a member of our strategy and business management team here today, to present.
Deanna, your sound is not very great. Is it just me or is it Deanna?
No, it's Deanna's sound.
It's me. It's
Yeah.
me. I wonder why. Let me try.
We can hear you, Deanna. There's just an echo.
And you're a little quiet.
Is
Yeah.
that better now? Is that better now?
Yeah, same here. I think just the technology at the other end.
Better? Worse?
Yes.
Better. Okay.
Better.
It was my monitor. I was plugged into another monitor. Okay.
Okay,
So thank
perfect.
you, Arnold.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Linda and team. Through the chair, I'm here to introduce Wendy and Tashani to take us through the wonderful translation and interpretation policy. I will make only 2 more seconds of remarks, then I'll pass over to them because they absolutely did the hard work to get us here to this very important policy. I think Arnold's deputation really speaks to translation being both a necessity at our organization, but also a huge opportunity where we can continue to do more and more, the more we're able to tap into resources and leverage policies like this to give us that opportunity. So with that, I will pass on to Wendy and Tashani. Again, a ton of hard work has gone into the development of this policy. They will take you through that. And through the chair, I thank the committee for listening to our presentation today. Thank you.
And Karen, are you going to put the presentation up? It's really good, and I think it might be helpful for us to follow along.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And thank you, Deanna.
Of course.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks, Linda, and thanks, Deanna, for the great introduction. And I do want to flag, it's a beautiful presentation, and I need to give Tashani 100% credit for that because she did all the beautiful design on this. So did a fantastic job as project manager on this. So I want to make sure that I give her full credit because we wouldn't be here without her keeping me organized, keeping us both on track. She did a phenomenal job. So I just wanted to say that. And I wanted to thank Arnold also for his comments. They're great. Just before I jump into the policy, I thought I could address 2 or 3 of the points just very quickly. I do appreciate the comment about the code of conduct. So we'll see if that can be put on the website in multiple languages. We have been looking at the option of doing verbal audio versions of Senior Speak on the website. We are redoing some things on the website and also increasing our HTML versions of documents on the website so they do function better with translation. So thank you. But you had lots of other great ideas in here. So we will continue to always look to improve and grow. So always welcome your suggestions. Okay, so jumping into the policy. I wanted to as you can see the policy statement, some of the processes in and out of scope here. The process started in August of 2024. It was a policy renewal of the Toronto Community Housing Policy that we inherited. So some of the biggest things we looked at was a clearer scope. And looking at the biggest gap we found was the training and communications around this policy. There really hadn't been anything put in. So this time we are really focusing on that to make sure that is happening. What I do really want to focus on though is hearing the tenant voice in this, as we heard from Arnold. So if we can go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about our consultation process. So we put together, and I will say Tashani was kind enough to put together all the data of our languages across the different regions and buildings and identify sort of the hotspots where we had a concentration of different languages. So we held 8 consultation sessions with tenants and focused on tenants who did not speak English well. Most of them didn't speak English at all. So we held these with an interpreter. And it really did turn out to be the kind of engagement we were looking for, where we met tenants who were missing out on opportunities because they didn't see things in their language. They missed out on information. One of the critical pieces we discovered is a lot of them didn't know that there was a tenant support center or the community safety unit and what they did, and that interpretation services were available on those phone lines. We immediately reacted with magnets, and I will say this is why I appreciate working at Toronto Seniors Housing. You can do a turnaround of an item like that and respond to tenant feedback very quickly, and that was one of the areas we were able to do that. Tom also mentioned the welcome guide, so we put in some instructions in there in those 14 languages on how you can receive interpretation and language supports. So we did 8 languages in total, and then we met with the Senior Tenants Advisory Committee twice. We also attended 4 regional tenant volunteer meetings, which had around 100 tenants in attendance. We also met with three groups of staff, mainly focusing on the senior services coordinator and the community services coordinator roles, because they connect most with tenants around the services that they want and need, or around program and participation. Then we took the policy to the Center for Advancing the Interests of Black People, and also the Responsible Personal Accessibility in Toronto Housing Committee, RPAth, and got great feedback from them. RPAth was absolutely, I have to give them wonderful credit. They really did a very in-depth procedure and gave us some great feedback. And because of that, we actually changed the policy to be expanded to include accessibility support. So sign language, Braille, that sort of thing. So you'll see community communication supports and accessible formats. So communication supports being things like sign language, and accessible formats being things like Braille. So we did make a substantial change to the policy thanks to their feedback. And I really appreciate that, because the goal of this policy is to reach everyone, to reach all those who have not been able to participate to date because of some of the barriers that are still in place. So I'll go to the next slide. So some of the key policy updates, I'm just going to highlight a few of them. We made sure the policy was in plain language so that tenants can really understand it this time. You know, a lot of policies tend to have a lot of legal jargon, and sometimes it's required, but where we could get around that, we absolutely worked on changing that and expanding also our definitions area to help with that as well. And that can also help generally, I think, in the organization when they look to some of those terms that we tend to use and tenants may not be familiar with. As I mentioned, now includes accessibility, and we're also committed to using data to inform our process. We did do that before. It wasn't specifically identified though. And we add a layer of that to it where we allow staff to go another step further and increase the number of translations that might be posted in an area due to their personal knowledge. Because the top secondary language that we're maybe putting a poster up in, it might not cover enough tenants. We're getting more and more of a mix in our buildings. So we wanted to make sure to really reflect that as a choice in the policy to go above and beyond. So the next slide. A few other key updates. The biggest piece, as I mentioned earlier on, is the need for procedures. We've started consultations around procedures with staff, and in just 2 meetings so far, we're seeing some not poor quality, just inconsistencies in how things are done, or people who aren't aware of certain services that we do have available. And so that education piece, both for tenants and for staff, is absolutely critical. A policy is only as good as people know about it. And so that is a big piece that will be happening for this in the fall, is the training and communications and really clear procedures across the organization, and for tenants as well, so they know timelines and things like that. Okay, we can oh yes, and I just want to mention one more piece about the procedures piece, is we're putting a lot of the heavy details into the procedures rather than the policy, because that is easier to change, so we can adapt quickly. So you'll see in this policy that it's a 5-year review, but we're looking at reviewing the procedures every year so that we can continue to adapt. And so the policy is the minimum standard, and then we will look to exceed that through the procedures each year. Okay, so now we can go on to the next slide. Sorry about that, Karen. So for requesting, the process is quite similar to what we've been doing all along. It just wasn't actually documented. So posters are translated generally into the English, from English into the top secondary language of each building. When we put major documents like the welcome guide on the website, we go to English plus 12 additional language, 12 languages plus French, because French does not usually fall in our top 12 languages. It's around 15. So we will publish those documents in more languages. And we're leaving some of the responsibilities for outside organizations who are bringing programs in. They are now required to do their own translations and interpretation for those, but we are not leaving them in the dark. We will provide certain tools for them if they need what languages are prevalent in the building they're providing programs in. We provide that. For tenants hosting events, we're providing template posters if they need it. We're providing guides on how to work with interpreters, things like that, so that they're not left all on their own with those things. So providing support as much as we can. And as Arnold mentioned, our website does have an automatic translation. We had 2 languages move into our top 12. And so rather than remove languages, we just added those to it, because that, to Arnold's point, it's an inexpensive fix. So we just thought we would continue to build on the languages rather than remove. Okay, we can move on to the next one. And then for other information, if you think of housing information that might be critical, we're leaving it to departments to really determine what's really important to tenants, what's the information they really, really need. And so there's 2 major factors for that. Are these documents going to help tenants participate, identify programs that they would be interested in or services, and will it help them with their tenancy? Will it help them follow the rules so they can have a successful tenancy and understand their rights as well? And then the second part is if tenants have asked for this, for similar information in the past. And we actually follow that with Senior Speak. Senior Speak is now up to 7 languages, because we've had requests for 7 languages. So each time we've had a request, we've added it to our list and have continued to translate in that language, recognizing if one person has asked, that probably means there's a greater need out there. So that's been our approach, and that's what we've kept in the policy as well. We can go on to the next slide. So accessibility and inclusion. So we've looked at accessibility tools and our idea lens, which a checklist, which we'll get to it in the next slide. So we're going to continue to review the preferred languages and any communication needs we can around communication supports and things like that. Of course, if people request it, if it's important information, we will always provide that for them. And we already mentioned the website. So I'll just move on to the next slide. And here we get into the idea lens. So there was an actual idea checklist in the idea strategy. Inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, for those who don't know the acronym. So this is just a few of the questions that are asked in that checklist. And we did go through the whole checklist to see, if we were addressing what we could. I think the biggest challenge is when you have 55 plus languages spoken by tenants, it's very challenging to address all of them all the time. So there will be groups who will feel likely left out at times, and will have to go an extra step to receive those services. Arnold had some great ideas, and we hope that some of those, as technology access especially increases with tenants, that this will help broaden the access for more and more tenants. But that is a challenge that will unfortunately remain, but we will do our best as people request it to make that process easier. Okay, on we go. Thanks. So this is just the timeline we've gone through, and I'll just focus on the last pieces that we're at now, which is here at the Quality and Tenant Engagement Committee, and then to the board, and then finalizing the procedures and rollout of training in August into the fall. And yeah, as mentioned, we've already started our staff consultations on the procedures, and we have actually 3 meetings for that this week. So it's quite an extensive process to make sure we get everything right. And that is our presentation. Any questions?
Thanks, Wendy. I have a question, but I'll open it up to others first. I saw some accolades from Jim, which is great.
Thanks, Jim.
Any questions from anyone?
Fareed
was it the hand? Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I've got a few questions. Thanks, Wendy. Good to see you.
You too.
I was going to ask about the top 10 language and what happens to tenants who actually may not speak one of those top 10 to top 12. But I think based on your presentation, my understanding is that they can request that service and that service will be provided.
Yes.
On the website, though, I mean, why are we restricting the Google Translate or whatever translation service we use to the top 12? Why not make it broader?
I actually agree with you, and I think we will look into expanding it and using the tenant list. It just becomes a very long drop down. Would be the only limitation.
Yeah, but we don't.
That.
But you know, yeah,
Yep.
but that's. I mean, I don't. I mean, in the interest of providing service and being inclusive, it's sort of standard. You know, if you are going to use that universally, so that's one. That's one. The other question has to do with. I know that department might have some nuances that need to be addressed in their provision of translation services. But I have some concerns with leaving it to the discretion of the department. And is there any benefit of providing sort of a standard template that will be enterprise-wide rather than having these differences? Because if tenants are accustomed to a certain kind of format and template, it might be easy for them to access that. You know, if the department were to vary from that sort of standardization, it might cause some. I mean, you know, it's not a major issue, but I just think that some kind of standardization across the corporation might be better than having each department decide how and in what format they want to present these services.
Yeah, through the chair. I just wanted to say we do work closely with each of the teams, supporting them and providing templates so that all documents look consistent and whatnot. And most of the requests, if anything is a corporate-wide document, that translation actually does filter through communications. So we do look at plain language for any of the teams, things like that, and work directly with the interpretation or translation company to make sure that everything is consistent. And we have foundational documents we're continuing to enhance to provide to those services so that they have a real understanding of the organization, and hopefully we'll use more consistent language across all of our documents.
I'll leave it there, Madam Chair. I might come back. I've got some other questions, but I don't want to dominate the discussion. Go ahead.
No, thanks for they're good questions. I had a question about the partners. So it sounds like tenant-led programs and partner-led programs are kind of out of scope of this, but we know that can be an issue. Is there anything in our partnership agreements that requires attention to translation so that people are able to actually participate fully? And maybe on the tenant side, we just probably have to pay attention to supports. It sounds like you're giving supports to templates and things that could be used or resources, but those are the two areas that I see as potential gaps.
Thanks, Linda. I'll take that one from a partnerships perspective in particular. So through the chair, I do not recall it actually being a particular piece of our agreements. I will say from personal experience working with a number of these partners, many are working in communities where they have the language and translation abilities in-house. I'm thinking of a program I attended in the north that was provided to a primarily Russian population, and the service was provided in that way. But it's a good flag, Linda. It is not currently in our partnership agreements, but something we do hold them accountable for in terms of how they meet our tenants' needs. So we hope that there is a match there, but it's a good flag from the partnerships perspective.
Great, thank you.
And Linda, I will say that we do reach out when partners reach out to us, and they do quite often. If they're putting up a poster, they will ask us what languages, or we will make a recommendation. If we'll say English only, you might want to consider these 3 languages. So we will provide those recommendations. And where we're having more templated posters for tenants, we are working on translating them into other languages so they can use them across the organization in other languages. Yes.
Okay, thank you. And will there be some kind of like evaluation of the policy like in a year, like, or what will happen to? I see it. Didn't quite see it on the timeline, but I'm sure that you're going to build that in.
It's 5 years. Yeah.
We have it in 5 years, but we're going to review the procedures part of it, which is kind of the layered piece of the policy every year. So the policy will always become it stays our minimum standard, and then we will look where extra adjustments need to be made to exceed those standards. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that would be great. And maybe we think about that. I saw the 5 years, but I thought, okay, maybe more like as you're rolling this out to see whether we're missing anything and how well it's being implemented. This is a really important item that has been on our agenda since we came together as an organization, as many of you know. Any other questions?
Just, Madam Chair, just one other
Lee.
brief comment following up on the delegation. There was I didn't realize that on our website we don't have the option of allowing someone to subscribe to the newsletter. I think that's an easy fix, and I think we should do it if we don't. That would be my recommendation.
Through the chair, that is actually something we are working on right now. I have a draft in my inbox right now of language that we will be taking to legal to make sure we're meeting all it's called CASL requirements, CASLE. I can't remember for the life of me what the acronym stands for, but I do know it's legislation around email subscriptions. It's very strict and it changed recently. So before we're launching that, we want to make sure all our everything is lined up to make sure we're respecting all the privacy requirements, both legislated and just good practice, before we launch that. But that is top of our list right now of areas we want to definitely expand on, and we should have that up before the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean that's this is initiated by the subscriber, right?
Yes, but we're also
It's
looking.
not us. It's not us imposing anything on them.
Yeah.
And for us to be taking 6 months to allow that to happen.
Through the chair, we have very few tenants who actually go to our website. So having it on our website is not necessarily going to be the fastest way to get subscribers. So we're looking at how we can proactively reach out. What are the permissions for proactively reaching out to tenants who we have email addresses for, so that we can increase that subscription a lot faster. I know I was at the regional tenant volunteer meetings. We asked how many had been to our website. I think out of 100 tenants, 3 had been to our website. So finding a more proactive way that we can do this and then keep it on our website as well was our thought of how we could best approach this to maximize the outcome.
Yeah, so I'm just speaking about the website, not on the broader piece. It's one additional method rather than the method. So we can pursue, I guess, unless I'm missing something, we could do this while we're sort of pursuing the broader objectives of looking at a greater circulation.
Yeah. Yes, through the chair, we do actually have a small subscription list for seniors speak from people who have reached out previously. But there are requirements on certain subscription, like where you have to be able to unsubscribe and things like that on there. So that's the other piece we're getting clarification around. So even if they've subscribed on our website, there has to be an unsubscribed version. So we're making sure that we're meeting those requirements.
That's great. I don't see any other questions. Thank you very much. This is really great work. The presentation and the policy. Thank you for sending that material. Jim, did you have a question or go ahead?
I just comment. I just think that this is a great way of walking the talk of inclusiveness. I mean,
Yep.
We talk about inclusiveness. This is a way of making it inclusive. And kudos to everyone involved in creating this.
Thanks, Jim. Your feedback is really really valuable. I feel the same way. So I think we're looking for an approval of this policy. And the only thing I would ask is if we could just add something about a review before 5 year, like that we're actually just particularly. I want to make sure that we're actually providing translation and that it's happening, and incorporating some of the feedback from our regular tenant surveys that they're feeling, because that has come up in terms of that. So that would be great. So with that, I'm looking for an approval. Jim, are you willing to approve? And a seconder, Fareed, are you good to second with, and really good feedback around the website? Thank you. All in favor?
Mm-hmm.
Terrific. So thank you. That's a really great policy to have under our belt. So thank you very much for all the work, the three of you. So really great. All right, we will move on to the next item, which is item number 9, which is our operational dashboard. And we do actually have a deputant for this too. So we'll start with the deputant, Mr. Margulies. And I'll once again just remind all of our deputants that when you're doing a deputation, that it's that we're not looking to identify individuals or tenants or staff, but and relevant to the item that we are presenting. So over to you, Mr. Margulies, for 5 minutes. Is Mr. Margulies on? Nope, there you are. Go ahead.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wanted to comment on the previous one, but it's okay, 5 minutes. With regards to just going back to the issue in our building where I reported before that there was chemical contaminations, public areas through hallway ventilation and vulnerable tenants, and also my unit chemical contamination. I have to say that after the Mr. Hunter involvement in this matter, chemical contamination through building ventilation significantly decreased during the last months. That's what I personally observed. The insecticides are much less dispersed through vents in our building, on our floors. Now, the engaging of vulnerable tenants, mostly violating RGI rules in dispersing chemicals into the hallways, decreased last week, starting last week. I'm not sure what the reason, possibly some staff is on vacation. It would be good if it decreased forever, but I hope it will happen with the oversight of the regional manager office. So unfortunately, the regional manager continues to disperse 1-year-old materials to third parties that are engaged in verifying some complaints about the activities. And she just basically, as I said, she stopped investigation a long time ago and just keep dispersing all documents with claims that nothing is happening. At the same time, she prohibited the local staff, the tenant services coordinator, to investigate this matter, despite this is, her direct job. And at the same time, encourages her, as a result, she doesn't investigate. She refuses to come to our floor and to my unit always when I invite her. And as a result, she said that there is no evidence that something is happening. I'm not surprised because, she refuses to collect this evidence, very actively refusing. So this is not normal activity of staff. Now, the CEO sent me a letter, it was about a month ago, stating that he recommended the air quality assessment in my unit and also the making assessment of a professional inspection of the unit. Now, professional inspection, like Mr. Fareed Amin, as former deputy city manager, knows that it, such decisions in these kind of complaints take 2-3 days maximum, to send a number of agencies to inspect. But here in TSHC, it may take years and still no inspection, professional inspection is ever performed. So I'm asking the board leadership and the councillor Pisanti personally, because I have some councillors attending my unit, surprisingly. So to ensure that there is professional inspection of my unit. With regards to the air quality assessment, I made a deputation on the TSHC board regarding very weak instrumentation supplied to the environmental health unit. They are coming out of time where disbursement occurs, they don't have, in my understanding, any instrumentation to assess total volatile organic compounds in the air. So basically, I'm not even sure what they put as a baseline to write their reports, but their reports are totally ungrounded. So if they would be willing to supply equipment to this unit, definitely I would invite, inspection by environmental health unit at the time when contamination occurs, or at least to leave equipment overnight in my unit so it can measure overnight contamination in the unit. And again, I appreciate Mr. Hunter in some progress in this matter, but my unit was not yet inspected, and it is not possible to reverse illegal alterations in the above unit 1010 without inspecting that unit 1010. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Margulies. I know that the senior level of the organization are following up with your concerns about your individual unit, and I think we'll take it offline and continue to do that work unless there's any questions to Mr. Margulies or comments. All right, we will pass it on to the and we will be continue to be in touch with you, but we'll pass it on now to Brad, who's going to be going through the dashboard.
Thanks, Linda. I'll just give Karen a second to pull it up. All right. So this standard dashboard that the committee receives indicates our work is over the past month and measures against the previous months, as well as that provides a 2024 average with regards to some of the major work that the operations team delivers, things such as arrears collection, vacancies, administrative tickets, pest management, and work order completions. Next slide, please. This is the arrears breakdown. Gives the committee an indication of the overall work with regards to how the arrears is proceeding. What you'll notice is that pie graph on the right-hand side, that the mediated agreement, the local agreements, and OACH actually represent almost 50% of the total arrears owed to the corporation from current tenants. And the bottom graph gives an indication as far as how many tenants, and what the dollar figure is with regards to each status of the arrears collection process. Next slide, please. Vacancies, you can see the work that we do with regards to vacancies, turning units over, how quickly we're turning units over. We've really kind of hovered in that low 200, that 200 to 220 range the last 3 months. I'm not sure, to be honest, that we can get it much lower than that. Just it takes 60 days to turn units over, and there's a lot of legal requirements such as ensuring that they're pest free and other things that have to be done before we're allowed to put a unit back onto the market and get a new tenant to occupy it. But in the next presentation, you'll see our performance with regards to how quickly we turn over units and how quickly we get new residents into our buildings, measured against the other local housing corporations. And it's quite impressive, the difference between TSHC and the other social housing providers in the province. Next slide. This gives the committee an indication of the work that our staff complete, as well as the work that the vendors complete. I would note, we talked about it last time, that there is a maintenance quality improvement project that we're looking to undertake early in 2026 with regards to setting some standards. Some of the things that we're measuring both staff and our vendors against is a direct competition with the terms of their contracts as far as performance. What we can see is that almost 60% of all the work orders that we assign to vendors are for the pest control process. With regards to that, I would note that every time we do treat a unit for pests, there are 3 work orders that are produced. So that 57% can be a little bit deceiving to look at. Next slide. With regards to administrative tickets, the committee can see that spike in that March, April, and May. And that really happens every year where we get that kind of spike. And what that is a lot of our tenants are requesting help with regards to Service Canada and pensions and helping with their taxes and things such as that. And we're about to launch a new program with Wood Green that'll give our staff access to have the help people with their taxes a lot easier, and it'll make it a lot less onerous on both our tenants and our staff. But you can see 34% of these are directly related to people trying to help to get their annual review done, which ensures that their rent is charged to them properly with accordance with what they earn through the RGI process. Next slide. Pest management, this is an area that the committee has indicated they'd like to receive an increased level of reporting on, and we're working on that. I think that the highlight is that we've declared 273 units pest-free, and that we continue to help both tenants with preparation as well as work with Toronto Public Health in a very collaborative manner in order to address tenants that are unable to prepare the units themselves for pest treatment. The graph also provides the committee with a breakdown of the different type of pests that we're seeing in our building that we're treating in our different communities. And that is the last slide, except for kind of a glossary for the committee. I'm happy to take any questions with regards to that.
Questions? Looks like we're on track in the areas. Any questions from anyone? Just okay. Not seeing any questions. I think I'll ask you to give us the report from the other provider, the other housing providers. That would be great. And thank you also. I did note the area of the reason for move outs. I think that gives us a really nice glimpse into what's happening when people are leaving, not just that the units are turning over, but where people are going. And it's always interesting to see that. So thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome. Great. So the local housing corporations represent the six largest social housing municipal providers in the province of Ontario. As part of the group, we provide statistics and reporting that's then put into an aggregate, and we get industry averages within. So what you'll see here is you'll see that the industry average for Q4 2023 in column 1, and then the TSHC average for 2023 beside it. And then Q4 2024 and TSHC in 2024. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the Q1 local housing corporation data in time for the report. Some of the highlights I think that I would point out are that when you look at the comparison between the unit turnover days, you can see that in Q4, TSHC was averaging 58 days from somebody moving out to reoccupation. And then you can see that the industry average is just under 80 days. I think that one of the big things that I took away from this report, and I wanted to point out, is the tenant move-out rate. And when you think about TSHC, our overall goal is to allow people to age in place. And you can see not only has that move-out rate come down below 2%, but you can also see how different it is from the industry average. I kind of interpret this in the way that we collect that data as a bit of a success measure of the integrated service model, and the fact that we're actually having people maintain their tenancy, and we're working with them to have successful tenancies. Further down, you'll see with regards to some of the households in good standing, the staff are just doing a phenomenal job when it comes to working with tenants to address their rent quickly. We have a fantastic relationship with Melanie in the Commissioner of Housing Office. Tom mentioned that we're having OACH talks starting soon to even strengthen this relationship and give our staff a better avenue and some more tools and tricks that Melanie and her team have developed in order to collect the outstanding rent and keep tenancies viable and successful.
Thank you for providing that. It is very helpful context from my perspective to sort of see what others are doing, and it's particularly interesting thinking about the city that we live in and how hard it would be for people to actually not be housed, and how much demand there is for housing. Any other questions or comments? Don't see any. So thank you for continuing to keep us informed of that. I'm sure this is just, it would be interesting to see at some point if there's I'm not asking you to do this, Brad, but comparators like other big cities, not regularly, but just is there any lessons learned? It sounds like we've got some lessons that we could actually share with others in terms of what it takes. And as Jim said at the last meeting, it's important to actually have the units turn over, but it's also important for the units to be in good shape when somebody moves into it. It's that first impression, and that's going to keep someone there as well. So thank you for that.
Linda,
Yeah,
it's Linda.
go
But
ahead.
I just would just quickly your comment on looking at other providers. So just to let you know, one of the challenges around doing that is the definitions.
Yeah,
So being part of the CEO group, it took years, probably
yeah,
2 to 3 years to develop those definitions. However, we are looking at extending and involving other housing providers, other municipal housing providers into the fold. So there could potentially be
oh,
that opportunity to share similar data across not just simply local housing corporations,
right.
but other municipalities who operate housing.
Yeah, that's great. That's
So
great. Thank you for
yeah,
that,
to,
Tom.
to, to be determined.
Yeah, and please don't feel like you have to do anything. Like this is
No,
actually really, really, really good to see. I think as we talk about innovation and some of the things that we're doing,
yeah.
it just might be interesting to present this in terms of kind of understanding, what it means actually behind it. So that's terrific. So congratulations to the team for that. And for all your efforts. I think we will now move on. If there aren't any other questions, thank you for that. We're going to move on to item number 11, which is another follow-up item and a really important, and it links in. It's our follow-up support initiative around complex tenancies. And we have another deputation, and Mr. Margulies, you've been busy thinking about this meeting, so we will pass it over to Mr. Margulies who will provide some his commentary and deputation. And we have 5 minutes on the clock, so over to you.
Yeah, I really thank you the time that you provided me to give some suggestions. But as being kind of closely involved in IT, I probably better understand some of the issues related to how the enterprise management system works and how it's supposed to work, including I had conversations with Rodney. And Miss Sandra knows this guy who goes, to every building working for complex tenancies team. I had conversations with, solutions team, the members, with regional office members, and the people in the community housing corporation made a deputation on the board of directors. And all these about the same, and also with Mr. Grant Coffey. And all this about the same thing, that there are serious privacy breaches in enterprise data management system. In particular, when investigations are launched following tenants' complaints, the folder had the same permission as other ordinary folders, and just about all maintenance staff, maybe 1,000 people, totally unrelated to the matter and to this building, can monitor in real time what is happening with this particular investigation, including planned visits or inspections of the unit, any reports, any staff comments, everything totally unrelated to these people. And in case when you complain about the staff member, this basically makes impossible to investigate issue. Impossible. Because they just remove the evidence right before the visits and intercept people who are expected to visit the unit and kind of brainwash them. So this is activity that seriously violates privacy legislation of the province and the city, and it should be addressed quickly, and it's easy to address. So literally the people who manage the database to provide limited access to the investigators team, only to the investigation folders, and exclude maintenance team from any access whatsoever to these folders. Those are serious privacy breaches. So now it also, the same thing happens with the council made a decision to share information with community safety unit and the police neighborhood units. So it's the process is the same to increase efficiency, but in practice, now what is shared? Nobody vets what is shared, and let's say the SSC in our building, who is totally a young girl, put under the impression, under the influence of other building staff, she can write just about everything in my file, and it is then automatically shared with the CSU, and CSU shares it in turn with the police, neighborhood units. So as a result, we have database that contains false information. And when in all law enforcement agencies, and the tenant in violation of privacy law doesn't have access and cannot request corrections of this information. So as a result, the police units come, let's say, to my unit on 911 call. Also, the CS community safety unit constables come, and they started the police wants to unload the investigation to community safety unit. The community safety constable says, okay, in our file it says that nothing is happening. So the police turn around and leave. The guy from the constable also leaves. Then I have to file a complaint with their management and raise the issue on the TSHC board of directors, where the manager is present for community safety unit. So it's all like what I'm suggesting is a policy. Please develop policy on sharing information with law enforcement agencies. The policy should be transparent, it should be published, and based on privacy legislation, allowing tenants to look at what was shared and requires corrections if necessary. And also vetting of information by tenancy management supervisors. Nothing should be shared until you actually vet and the supervisor allows to share it. Thank you.
Thank you. Some of this is relevant to this item, but we will take this back. I think the recommendation that we look at our privacy policies, we'll take that into consideration. And perhaps actually when we're talking about this item, Brad, we could just talk about how we get consent and where things are documented, so that we can actually bring some of these ideas that Mr. Margulies is bringing in directly to this. Does that make some sense to you, Brad?
Makes complete sense, Linda. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Margulies. We will follow up on some of the privacy pieces, and we'll address some of the issues in this item. So I'm going to pass this over to Brad to introduce Sandra, I believe, but over to you to address to open up this item.
Yeah, so kind of building on the board and the committee's request for us to look at innovative ways to do it, I'm really pleased to introduce Sandra Marsh. She's a supervisor of our complex tenancies team within the operations department. And with Sandra today, because this is a city partnership, we also have Emily Goss, and she's here from the Housing Secretariat's office, and she's the manager of Housing Stability Services over in the Housing Secretariat's office. So without further ado, I'll let Sandra take it over.
Thanks, and welcome, Sandra and Emily. Great to have you both here.
Thank you so much. I'm not looking at my screen, I'm looking at my own PowerPoint, so I'll just go from here and hopefully it all works out. I'm Sandra, the Complex Tenancy Supervisor. Thank you for having me here today. And like Brad said, Emily is also here. But I'd also like to mention that this work is also being done by the Coordinated Access Team through the city. We have done a lot of work together. So even though I'm here, Emily's here, there's a lot of background work being done to make this pilot happen. So just the background and overview. So this pilot unofficially started at the end of last year, involving multiple city divisions. The pilot aimed to enhance the service for some of our tenants, particularly those transitioning into housing from the shelter system who are not part of the rapid housing program. As you may know, 1 in 5 tenants transition into housing from the shelter system with a disadvantage code. Many of them do so without formal supports in place. This pilot is looking at providing those tenants, some tenants, 10 case management spaces that are being made available to tenants who have come into housing through the disadvantage code. So 20% of our tenants are allocated with this disadvantage code, including those experiencing homelessness. The complex tenancies team are identifying those tenants who are at risk and who emphasize the need for early intervention and direct referral to support services. HFCS, Housing Focused Client Supports program, offers tailored stabilization for case management, trusteeship, PSW, hoarding supports, and accepts referrals from homelessness serving agencies and prevention programs like OACH. The new pilot initiative will facilitate the complex tenancies team to refer senior tenants into 10 case management spaces over the course of a 12-month period, improving access to critical supports that can help with housing stabilization and the eviction prevention for TSHC tenants. Next slide. How does this happen? How do we select these tenants? So tenants voluntarily consent to join. The complex tenancy team identifies a tenant to invite and participate based on regional or complex tenancies knowledge of who could most benefit. The criteria is fairly broad. It is the first year of the pilot. We will continue to monitor who is selected, and current tenants are chosen based on tenancy management concerns. So tenants have to consent to participating in this pilot and can withdraw at any point. Tenants must be receiving RGI, rent guaranteed income. Tenants must be housed from the shelter with the DA disadvantage code. Tenants may be new or existing tenants whose housing stability is at risk. Next slide. Like I said, tenant identification. So the tenants are chosen by the complex tenancies team, where they identify tenancies that are at the stabilization stage. So they may be having tenancy management issues such as hoarding concerns, unsanitary conditions, could be arrears, behavioral, and the complex tenancies team are actively working with those tenants, or the region's local SSCs are working with them and require a little bit more assistance. Like I said, participation is voluntary and tenants must consent and be willing to engage with support services. Once those tenants are identified, the senior service coordinators and the TSHC tenants will complete the STARS support assessment. The STARS support assessment is a City of Toronto's common assessment tool. It stands for Service Triage Assessment and Referral. And it's used by all city-funded shelter and street outreach programs. And includes components such as intake and triage, housing checklists, support assessments. And it's a tool that is person-centered, holistic, effective, and housing-focused response to homelessness. The tool provides a standardized way to understand people's support needs and assist staff to connect with people experiencing homelessness, to housing and resources that they may be eligible for. A completed risk assessment is securely shared with follow-up services and city staff. A completed risk assessment is a tool that initially started off with the complex tenancies team when we first started providing transitional support alongside with follow-up supports for the rapid housing program. It is a tool that was initially used just to ensure that new tenants coming in through shelter or homelessness into housing, that some of the key things about housing were met. Is rent being paid? Are tenants accessing their unit? Activities of daily living, are their units, are they being maintained, and things like that. So this has kind of been modified for this pilot. It is used to kind of help identify potential tenancy risk and support needs. And the tool has been adapted to better reflect the unique challenges and strengths of tenants transitioning transitioning into housing. So it's kind of a tool that's used as a guide to show where tenants are at the beginning of the pilot. It's kind of also a tool that's used for a case management practice of goal setting with the tenants. So hopefully by the end, tenants are, and when follow-up support workers are working with their tenants, some of those concerns that tenants were experiencing upon coming into the program pilot, those things have been resolved. Once that's all completed, so STARS and the completed risk assessment, tenants must also sign the coordinated access consent form to participate, which means tenants must sign that form in order for us to move forward with sending it to coordinated access for them to be assigned a follow-up support worker. So it's tenant signs consent. HFCS then processes the referral and assigns it to a partner follow-up support provider. So currently we have two agencies that have been chosen based on their expertise with the population and seniors geriatric concerns, as well as expertise in working with complex tenants. And then the transfer of service happens once the follow-up support worker is assigned. They will meet with the complex tenancy SSC, case discussion without the tenant, just to understand what the tenant's needs are, what's happening, tenancy risks and service needs. And then a warm transfer meeting will be held, usually in the tenant's unit. That's not so specific. It also can happen in the building or where it's most comfortable for the tenant. So next slide. So it was launched in April. Like I said, it was a little bit before that, just because we did have early referral. However, the pilot was launched and the bulk of the referrals were made immediately after it was launched. And then April to July, case management has been ongoing. We have had monthly meetings with the city, along with the follow-up support workers, at a high level of debriefing how it's going, some of the tenancy concerns with each agency separately on different weeks. And if a tenant, and we've had this already occur, no longer wants to participate in the pilot, that's no problem. They will be discharged, and that spot can be filled with a new tenant requiring the supports and services from coordinated access. And then the review and report. We are just finishing up the second stage with the agencies. We will be doing a pilot evaluation and continue that until October of 2026. So just in regards to the review and report, and because this is a pilot, we will need to manage our expectations at this point, as there's no guarantee that this pilot will continue on after this year. We still need to, it's very early on, and we still need to review how the pilot goes, and it's also obviously dependent on continued funding. And that is it for me.
Great, thank you. Just a quick question related to the deputation. Can you tell me, in terms of the consent process, is there something about exchanging information, and how is information exchanged from our housing provider to these their healthcare providers, and just to flesh that out a little bit?
Thank you for the question through the chair. Consent we take very seriously. Tenants have to have, one, the capacity to consent, and documents. There might be several documents that are signed throughout this process. So there might be one document that is signed strictly for housing. We generally don't, I know it's a fine line between health information. We generally do not get involved in obtaining health information, and that is not our role as a landlord. However, sometimes those issues do overlap, but we are highly dependent on the follow-up workers who are funded and trained to, collect that type of information and provide that kind of support. So when we are doing our monthly meetings, or when we are speaking about, some health-related issues in a tenancy, we don't capture that information. We are, like I said, we are highly dependent on the follow-up workers to capture that information. So like I said, we capture our own consent forms as well as coordinated access. And if there's any additional services that come into play or supports that are brought in, consent is also signed for that. It's also, our consents are time limited. Generally, there is a rule for consent forms and how long they're valid for. But once a tenant removes consent at any point, verbally, or just with non-participation of the program, then we will remove consent and abide by what the rules are around consent and freedom of information.
Thank you. Thank you. And maybe a quick other question in terms of what's the demand? How many are you finding that there's a lot of people that it's this pretty small pilot, and what's the turn down rate? Because I imagine that the people that are turning down are still complex tenants, but how do we handle that?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the demand. I know that number 10 is a low number. However, what we are experiencing is tenants who are very unwell. So as you know, with the ISM, there is already a requirement that the regional SSCs make those referrals to health services or community services to enhance support. So by the time it comes to complex tenancies, some of those referrals have already been completed. So when we get to this pilot, we are already experiencing situations where a lot of referrals or time have gone into supporting tenants. So they are unwell. So some of the struggles that are challenging for us is the consent piece and the capacity piece. So when somebody's not able to provide consent, especially when they're presenting unwell with capacity challenges, it makes it very difficult. That doesn't mean that complex tenancies is not supporting. They remain on the complex tenancies caseload. They just will not be participating in this pilot. But we actually had a meeting this morning with one of our follow-up teams, and the role of a complex tenancies SSC is to build that rapport and try to get a tenant to the point of consenting or getting services to support the capacity concerns. So they're still supported. They're not left behind. They're still supported by our team.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point that we'll capture, that that the complex tenancy team is there for complex tenants. This is an offshoot program that is providing that streamlined approach to other services. Other people have questions, comments?
Madam Chair, Jim has had his hand
Oh,
up.
perfect. Thank you.
Also Emily and also Brad.
Thank you. Yeah, I needed that help. See, I see no
problem.
hands. There you go.
Yeah.
So I'll go to Jim and then Emily and then Brad. Jim.
I have a couple of questions. Can you name the two agencies that are involved in the support? And if the pilot is a success, will it be implemented as a program?
Great questions.
So
Go
maybe,
ahead. Go ahead.
Maybe I can take that one, Sandra, if that's
Go ahead.
helpful. So the two follow-up support agencies are part of that city, like the city's broader housing-focused follow-up supports portfolio, and they are CODA and Homes First. I'm looking for Sandra to confirm that. Seeing a nod, that's great.
Emily, maybe just Emily, sorry, but CODA, it's an acronym. Just share with the committee what CODA.
Oh, Tom, you're
I don't
testing
think
me.
CODA is.
Isn't it the Community Occupational Therapist? So is that CODA?
Yeah, it's bigger. It's more of an agency though. It's not. Yeah, I think it originally is.
Well, I think it was original, but sorry,
I've always known them as CODA, Tom. So I was like, oh, that's a good trivia question. But they are
okay.
two follow-up support agencies that are very familiar with the tenant population, have done a lot of work with seniors in the past, so they felt like a really good fit for this particular pilot. And I think as Sandra mentioned, like this pilot's really emerged to respond kind of directly to, I guess, feedback and challenges that TSHC was expressing to the city related to some folks working with that complex tenancies team. So we are very interested in the outcomes of the pilot, and then expansion, of course, would be dependent on resources. I think as TSHC probably experiences, like the demand for services far outstrips the supply. I think we're kind of feeling that across the human services continuum these days. But we would certainly take those results back and bring those forward to kind of our senior leadership here.
It's something that's really close to my heart. I work with the homeless and street involved people, and as well, beginning with my tenure on the board of health at Board of Street Health. We did research projects that called at the end for a program like this, and so I'm really glad to hear that it's actually at least a pilot is being done, and may prove that it is needed and continue. I'll keep my fingers crossed and hope that it's very successful.
Yeah, those are really good points, Jim, and I think the board would support that as well. So, and it sounds like there's a lot of other mental health agencies that are supporting the complex tenants as well. But these are partners on this pilot. Emily, did you have another comment? Because you had your hand up previously. You're okay?
I think it's okay. Yeah. Thanks so much, Linda.
Okay. I'll pass it over to Brad. Did you have a comment?
Thanks, Linda. I was just going to say that I think this pilot came about because of the success that we've had with the rapid rehousing initiative that the committee's received previous reports on. We've really been working hard with the housing secretary and other city offices to kind of bridge that gap that the rapid rehousing program filled with regards to helping people how they transition instead of just putting them in an apartment and saying, okay, now go live your life. Is one of the things that we really learned. So this pilot's super exciting for the operations team and everybody involved. I also wanted to address just some of the privacy concerns. So all of the staff have role-based access to information, and anything that we do have that's PHIPAA, which oftentimes really has to do with more with like accessibility requests and things like that. Those files are password protected so that only the appropriate staff that have access to the password as well as access to the database can get into that information and view it.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It could be an interesting, maybe even not for this committee, but for our risk committee to look at how do we actually maintain information about our tenants. And but this is very helpful, and it is really important for organizations to be able to meet and work together. So thank you for that, Brad. Did I miss anybody else's hands, Karen?
Nope, that was everybody.
Well, that's fantastic. I think that the board would hope that this pilot, the results of the pilot come back, and that I think we would be happy to support continuing to have this kind of a targeted program to support our complex tenants that looks like there's going to be more and more people, or a continuous group of people that are coming quickly into our apartments without that have complex needs. So that's fantastic. Great, and we'll follow up on more on the privacy. Thanks for addressing those items as well. So at this point, I think it's for information. I don't think we have to have an approval on this one. I think we will, if there aren't any other questions, we have one more item, and it's item 12, and it's over to Deanna to give us a brief update on the engagement, partnership, and communications.
Thank you, Linda. And this will be a brief update. I do not want to stand between us and adjournment of the committee. And this will be a verbal update today through the chair. And that was intentional. If you think about the engagement, partnerships, and communications team, we are deep in our busy season. We're one of many busy seasons. There's not a non-busy season, but I should say summer is a very active period for our team. So I thought that the time best spent today through the chair will be providing just a quick overview of some of the exciting things happening that have happened over the last few weeks, that are happening over the next few weeks. And then when we return to this committee in September, we will have quarterly data that provides that sort of fulsome view on how this time went. So a few updates for you folks. So one of the biggest pieces of our busy season, of course, is we have a high number of tenant-led events. The good weather, the opportunity to engage, the sunshine is really at its peak at this period. So I've personally attended coffee socials, Mother's Day celebrations, Father's Day celebrations, Canada Day celebrations. Some are barbecues, some are not. Barbecues are a big portion of where tenants like to spend their community activities fund to celebrate these types of milestones. We have about 50 so far booked for this summer alone. So over a few have happened already. And as you can imagine, quite a few will happen over the next 2 months. I've attended a few and they are all quite enjoyable. And we have had a really good time at the ones that I've been at. So that's a really exciting thing that is going on in our communities. We have our next round of regional tenant meetings coming up starting this week, actually, the 17th, the 18th, the 24th, and the 31st, one per region. And those will be gathering our tenant volunteers. We have a higher number of RSVPs this time than last time, so stay tuned for actual attendance numbers. But we have some exciting guests attending our regional meetings. This time we have the Toronto Police Service attending to provide elder abuse and fraud prevention training, as well as the TSHC Energy Conservation Team, which is timely based on some of the conversations we had today. You may recall in April and May, we had the community paramedics talking about how to beat the heat. Now we have TSHC attending these regional meetings to talk us through ways to conserve energy through the summer period and into the winter. They'll provide all season sort of advice to us. So we're very excited about those regional meetings that are imminent and coming up over the next 2 weeks. And finally, our deputant did a good job of profiling what's to come, which is our next senior speak. It will be coming out the summer issue. I won't speak to the exact timeline. Wendy's here for that, but it is in production now. We are excited to get it out. Some really nice stories, including what was mentioned by the deputant around some of our community gardens. So all that to say, very busy season from a tenant-led and initiative perspective. Our partners, as always, are continuing to operate in our communities. And through the chair, I look forward to returning in September with some of that data on how Q2 looked for the organization. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions?
I see Jim's hand there.
Jim?
What's the date for the Southeast regional meeting?
Good question. Let me pull it up right now. Jim, I have a briefing note in front of me with the dates. The Southwest, you said? Or Southeast? Southeast is on July 18th, this coming Friday at Strathmore Boulevard, Jim.
Great. I can attend this time.
We'll see you there. Awesome. See you there.
That's great. Any other questions? It's lovely to see that there's lots of events happening. That means our funding policy is working as well. So
yes,
that's,
it is. Yes.
Exactly. That's terrific.
That's right.
All right. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to move to the last item. And I just want to again thank. It was really nice to hear some new voices at our table today, Sandra and Emily, and the team. It's great to see the translation policy up and running. I think the board is really interested in hearing back on how that works and on the complex tenancies and lots around communication. So it's been a good meeting. With that, I'm looking for an adjournment. Jim, I'm wondering if you could approve adjournment of this meeting of July 14th. Thank you. And seconded by Fareed. Thank you, Fareed, for your always having great questions as well and pushing us a little bit further. And Tom, also thank you for the in-depth report and focus on keeping our seniors as cool as possible during this challenging time. So be safe, everyone. So all in favor, we adjourn. And I wish everybody that you have a great rest of your summer and that it stays sunny, but maybe not 40 degrees and smoky. So, but with that, I will call this meeting to adjournment. Thank you. And thank you, Karen, for keeping us all on track and for watching all the hands and for the team that's behind you. I always feel like I'm really well supported by a village on this call. So with that, we will adjourn for the evening. Take care and enjoy being in the rest of
everybody.
Okay.
Excellent job.
Bye.
Thank you.
Excellent job.
Everyone.
Thank you, Linda.
Take care.
Carol Francis.
Oh, hey, Carol.
Yeah.